You're listening to the Business and Life Podcast, where 7 days a week, proven entrepreneurs share their success stories, failures, and give you true value on how you can build a great business and an awesome life. With your host, Mike Olivas.
Hey guys, I'm usually coming in hot, but today I think I need to come in real. My 13-year-old national group travel company was pretty much close to shutting down. I've somehow turned a negative into a positive, but it took about a week straight worth of strategy since all this has gone down. My team and I put together an 11 series best of episode, which I call Coping with COVID in Business and Life. Business owners and employees are going through dire times right now. They're losing their jobs and shutting down their business. I know it firsthand because I recently had to let go of the majority of my employees. A 13-year-old company broken down in a matter of days. I'll rebuild it and I'll make it better and I'll make it stronger. And I want to make all of you just as optimistic as I am. So in a world of nothing but negative news and drama right now, and being forced to do nothing but take in all of this terrible content on the news, my team and I focused all of our attention to bring you the stories of how others have overcome rock bottom, to show you that with great obstacles and challenges come great opportunities. This special series is the collection of the answers of my guest of one of the most powerful questions that I ask day in and day out, 7 days per week on my show. That question is simple. Give me a time where you've hit rock bottom and were able to overcome that disaster. Listen to these stories. Realize that it's a part of the journey and understand that you are not alone. And rolling up your sleeves is nothing new to you. Listen, learn, and get to work. You got this, Life Nation. Now go get it done.
That would be way back when the real estate business was starting. We were, I want to say 8 months away from being married. We were engaged. We had just bought a house a few months earlier. And this was sort of in the time where Tom had this epiphany, which he didn't really share with me. I mean, he said like he had the whole, I want to retire by 35 thing, but that wasn't really, there was no plan. There was no deeper,
Sure.
we didn't discuss it in length. It was just kind of, he threw it out there. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. That sounds great. And we were living our lives. And out of the blue, he came home and told me he spent $8,000 on a real estate training without speaking to me about it first. And that was our moment where it was like, whoa, where did that come from? We were together since freshman year of college. So like we knew everything. We discussed everything. Right. We had a 5-year plan after college. We were going to get married. After we got married, we were going to have kids. Like we had the plan, and then he up and kind of obliterated the plan a little bit. So that was, I would say, our biggest rock bottom moment was really realizing about each other and that we weren't on the same path, and we had to figure out how to get realigned with what we wanted in our lives, because otherwise were we going to go forward? I mean, were we going to get married? And
in those first few years, it was feast or famine, as we like to say.
Yeah.
There's times whenever I can go back and say, if this didn't happen, I would have had to think, is this right? Meaning, will I go back to working for the machine, if you will? Because I spent 10 years in the corporate world. Yeah. And for example, there was one client I took on, and I admittedly, today I wouldn't take the client on. I did then because it was a consulting type gig. So it was like 4 months of guaranteed pay. So obviously that was
it's hard to say no. Yeah.
Yeah. It was one of those things where I heard somebody say one time, when you're brand new as a speaker, you'll pay somebody $50 to listen to you on the street, and then years later, you wouldn't take the $50 no matter what. So same idea is that I took this gig. It was a good gig, but it was just, I would have rather been speaking at different places, but this gave me continual income for 4 months. So there were a couple of times where it was hairy there, where it's like, this is kind of 1 month could make the difference of me having to go sort of back and working in the system, if you will.
I ended up in the hospital on a Saturday heading to our son's baseball game, and I'm with my wife in the car, and I'm like, we're going to, we have to go to the emergency room. And I pull over, she takes over driving. She's like white as a ghost at this point. I say, I just, my chest feels funny. I didn't tell her what was really happening, which was that, my heart was beating so hard, it felt like it was going to pop out of my chest.
Jeez.
And So I end up in the emergency room on a gurney and thinking, I think I'm dying. I think I'm not going to see my kids again. And it's this devastating, just sadness and self, I'm just angry at myself. And it turns out the doctor says, look, you've had too much coffee. You're not sleeping enough. You're in a very high stress, environment in the work that you're doing. And, you probably, you're just not taking great care of yourself. So you didn't have a heart attack. Thankfully, fortunately, not a heart attack. I had an anxiety attack.
Yeah, like a panic attack. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's so many people that I meet, as you said earlier about entrepreneurship, one of the great benefits is freedom. It's just no describing to me what it feels like to wake up in the morning and know I'm in charge of my own destiny. I'm the captain of my own ship, right? And my own soul. But back then I felt anything but free. And so it just was so restricting, and to the point, restricting and constricting. It's like constricting my heart, the expression of a part of myself that I didn't have access to in the work I was doing at the time. And I'm not saying, by the way, that you need to jump. My book is not about jumping ship anyway, and I didn't jump ship. And it certainly doesn't mean that if you're a lawyer or a doctor, any of these high stress professions where the incidence of mental, of challenges on the mental side, of physical challenges, including addictions and substance abuse issues, et cetera, that you have to quit those things. I didn't need to quit law, but at the time I didn't have access to resources, and consciousness-wise, I was pretty unevolved at that point. I was relatively young, and just didn't know. And so for me, I had to get out of that area and pursue something else. And that was perfect. But what I know now, what I teach about and speak about, you can make pivots. You can change. Even everyday pivots are possible. Yeah. So that you don't necessarily need to quit a job or a relationship or something. And sometimes, you know what? You do. Yeah. Sometimes you do need to build, as we like to call it, a second bridge. Like we have a house in Cape Cod, and this beautiful bridge over a body of water. And some years ago, as we were writing the book, actually, I noticed that they were doing some work on the bridge, and next to it, pulled over and asked what was going on. Army Corps of Engineers guy says to me, we're building a second bridge because this bridge here might not survive another nor'easter. Like this bridge could go down next winter. So they built a second bridge. And I thought, well, that's the perfect, analogy for what pivoting is all about. Right. You don't tear down the first bridge before the second is built. Otherwise you're stranded right on one side or the other. And they just, a quick addendum to that is that a few years later, we see that the second bridge is up. The first one was torn down, but they're building again. We're like, oh, this is perfect, right? Millions of dollars spent, right? It's taking years. What the heck are they doing? And we asked the question and go, well, that second bridge, right, was a temporary bridge. That wasn't the permanent bridge. And I thought, this story only gets richer, right? Because as entrepreneurs, we know that sometimes the bridge we're building, it's a great way to move from one thing into another, whether it's to pivot the model that you're doing. YouTube, many people don't know, started out as a video dating site. Yeah. They lost the dating part, right? They kept the video part. So it doesn't mean that the thing that you're doing or constructing right now is the permanent bridge. It's not the one necessarily that's going to see you through to whatever retirement looks like for you. But it is a necessary build on that path to the thing that you ultimately are meant to be doing.
Hey guys, Michael Levis here. I've cut my coaching rates nearly in half, and I've added some time to my daily calendar to help you, our listeners, with your business in this time of need. If you were let go, or if you finally feel like in the midst of all this, you've been motivated to finally start your own company, let's talk about my affordable startup advising package that will give you from idea to revenues fast. If you are trying to simply keep your company alive after this terrible epidemic, I will give you some great valuable tactics on how I did it, on how to not just let employees go or shut down shop. Let me help you keep your businesses alive and thriving. I can't help everyone, but you won't know if I can help you or not until you schedule a quick 20-minute call at michaellevis.com/coaching.
So in 2013, I decided to put on a big conference, and I signed a contract with the Gaylord National, which is this massive, if any of your listeners have ever been to a Gaylord property, I mean, they're spectacular. They're amazing. They don't get that way because they're giving out cheap contracts, right? So I signed this like whopper of a contract with the Gaylord National to put this conference on. And I just really lost my head as to really the bandwidth of my team and what was going to be required to line up the corporate speakers, the corporate sponsors, to sell those tickets, to cover the cost of that event. And about 2 months before the event, 30 days before my room block closed, I had maybe 6.5% of my room block filled with 30 days to go. I think I had sold like 20 tickets to this 500-person conference. So I was pretty fucked at that point.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty rock bottom for me.
There was a brand that I didn't do enough due diligence on, or not even enough, but the right due diligence on. And it turned out to not have the processes and systems that I thought it did. And the customer base was different than I thought it was. And so I got overconfident in myself, my own abilities, because I had money. I look back when I didn't have a lot of money, I was making a lot of really smart strategic decisions. And then when you come into windfalls of money and exit or whatever it is, it's easy to start making decisions that are not well grounded. And I started to make some decisions because I could back it up. It didn't hurt if I lost that money. And I realized that I made some poor choices during that time.
The more you do something, it's like developing a muscle, right? So the more you are faced with adversity and you have challenges, and the more you have to figure out a way over, around, through those challenges and those obstacles, the more you become, you gain wisdom and you gain confidence and you gain experience in knowing that nothing is fatal unless you make it fatal, unless you quit. And so, I've gotten really good at persevering through any challenge that I've had. But I've had many, many in my past that, were really the breeding ground or the training ground for me to get to that point. And, the biggest was with myself, because I was often someone that would hold myself back from doing things and would say no or find a way out because I was afraid of being judged or being made wrong. And so I often held myself back. And so I think whether it's a personal issue, whether it's a business issue, whether it's a relationship issue, to me, it all starts with having awareness. When you have awareness that, hey, it's not the other person or it's not this situation that you're a victim of, but when you have awareness that what did you do and how did you react and what could you do better and how do you want to be better, that then determines the path that you go on to move forward, as opposed to holding yourself back and preventing yourself from having those opportunities.
Life Nation, you got to remember that in order for things to change, you must change. And in order for things to get better, you must get better. You just got better by hanging out with me, Michael Libas, and the Business and Life Nation. So come back tomorrow, because I'm here dropping sound bombs 7 days a week, baby. If you'd like to subscribe, please do, so you can take action and execute. See you tomorrow.